Hi, everyone. We are on a fairly tight time schedule today. You are welcome to stay where you are and continue eating, but we do need to start the interview, and there are seats up here, anyone that wants to come and join. It's probably a good idea if you get up to these seats at least in 45 minutes, because it will be easier to take your questions then. But I'm going to flip on Luca and Arlene's microphones, and we'll get started. All right, thank you.
Oh, on the side. Yeah, that's a good idea. We won't press any buttons that'll turn it off. That might be good.
Well, you could hold his. All right, we'll give people a little chance to move if they want to. Sound check. Say something.
Oh, how are you?
Perfect. Say something.
I hope you'll be able to understand everything that goes on here. I'm not sure I will.
Yeah, your voice is a little deep and rusty.
All right.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Okay, good.
Don't know what you're going to hear, but okay, our pleasure.
All right. I think we're not too late. Thank you again so much, everyone, for being here today. This opportunity to listen to Luca and Arlene has been many, many weeks in the making. And I want to thank all of you for being here, but mostly I want to thank Luca and Arlene Cecco's founders of Garth Newel for being here today. We're going to divide today's conversation into 4 parts. The first part will be looking back at their original inspiration and motivation for starting this as very young people to start this music center. The second section will talk a little bit about how they built the family of support for Garth Newel, and the third section will look at their dreams for the future of this institution, and the fourth section will take your questions. But let's dig in. So back in the late 1960s, I guess, early 1970s, you came upon this really amazing opportunity to do something radically different with your careers. You were both in the Rose String Quartet, you were both on the faculty at Duke University, and yet here on this mountainside came this amazing opportunity, and you dove in head first and did this amazing thing. Without recounting the story of how it happened, talk to us about why you chose to make it happen.
That would be easy for me. I hope everything will be as easy today as this one. I was brought up in a countryside with neighbors who were very distant, and I absolutely loved being in the country. We had forest behind us. I loved walking in that forest, making believe very often of whatever, fantasies, ideas, and picking wild blueberries. And I loved the thunderstorms there in the countryside where my brother and I could be naked and we would go out on the lawn and just gesture at it and yell at the thunder and the lightning and all of that. So the countryside was important to us. And being a musician, I'm skipping a lot here, but being a musician and even going to college meant that we were going to be not in the country, we were going to be in urban areas. And immediately I began to miss that countryside. And so when this opportunity came up, and when it came up, I refused the first time because we had other engagements. And that was to come here and speak with Christine Kendall, who wanted to do something with this property so that basically she wanted it to become a foundation, or her lawyer was pressing her to do that so she wouldn't have to pay such taxes on it. And so when they called the next year and said that she still wanted to talk to me, I immediately came, and we had a great conversation, and we knew some people in common, and then she said, go up and look at the property and the big house, which we now call the manor house, and see what you feel could be done. And so I did that. The property was all overgrown. I didn't even notice this building right here for quite some time, really. I saw it out of the corner of the eye, but didn't pay any attention to it. And we focused on the manor house, which was in terrible shape, disheveled, and totally vacant of anything. So I thought, I love this. It's in the country. I loved it when we drove from Roanoke to here because it began to be ever more beautiful. And being here and then looking down the gap, which you couldn't see very well at that time, but it looked distant, and I liked that feeling. Now, does that answer the question, or have I evaded it?
You've answered a part of the question, and certainly you found deep inspiration. I'm sure you both did, deep inspiration in the setting. You're deeply also in love with music.
Yes.
And how did this environment speak to your music making?
I was able to breathe outside, and I thought, it sounds strange, but that very fact and the thrill of the countryside, I thought, this is me and this is music. That this is where serious music, so-called, I think it's very beautiful music. It has a message for anybody who has any kind of realization of who they are. That music that I love so much, that's that classical music, and that includes today's music, which, if it's there in high quality, gives a message to anybody who really is able to listen because they have enough knowledge to know what's beautiful and worthwhile. And I thought this was the place that was needed, not an urban area where everything else is going on, but this can be focused the minute you begin to drive up the driveway. It changes your senses, and this is where that music belonged.
Arlene,
Yes.
Did you also grow up in the country?
No.
So what was it like for you to be along for the ride on this?
Well, I have to say the same things that Luca has just said. The beauty, inspiring for the music, I think, as a place to be. Plus, I was very much in love with Luca. I had to go where he went.
I tried to get away. No, I'm only kidding. Arlene, I must say right at this point that it could not have happened without her. She was extraordinary. We were definitely on the same page. We were also very fine partners in whatever we undertook at Garth Newel, I mean, in its development. And we both loved music. We met because of music, and so that seemed to be something that we could both look forward to in our lives, if that makes any sense.
It does, and I guess you had positions at Duke University, you were playing in an active quartet, and both of those things went by the wayside as you chose this. And that's, I still to this day find this, to this day, I've not been involved with Garth Newel all that long, but it resonates with me in a certain way, having made a similar kind of a choice when I was young. And I guess it would be wonderful to hear you talk a little bit about how that changed you as a musician, maybe starting with Arlene.
Well, you know, the first students we had here were part of it. It was like I had a big family to feed with the students being here, and they rehearsed a lot. We played soccer with them. We played, what did they call it, Luca? The baseball that out there.
We made up a
milk carton baseball. That's what it was called. Because we used the milk carton outside the manor house, and we had the whole baseball diamond there, or whatever you call it, and we played with them. And
a home run is when you got the milk bottle on the outside roof there as you enter. I was the only one that got it.
Well, let me think. I think that perhaps Beverly got it.
Well, maybe.
But anyway, those were wonderful days because, as Luca said, it was though we were camping out in the manor house, but at the same time, with the spirit of these young people who wanted to, I mean, the most important thing was them practicing and being coached and performing, and they performed for Christine Kendall too. And then we always felt that physical activity was good for one, you know, and so we'd go to the high school and play soccer in their field.
There was, this may be what you want to know, Steve, there was a heavy risk in all of this. And we had good salaries at the university. This was now in Buffalo, New York State University, Buffalo. And we'd been there for, I think, 3 years, but we had met Christine, and we had promised her, because she asked that, when she asks us to come and be here, stay here, will we do that? And that was a lot of what this was about, and we said yes. And so in 1980, when she said, it's time for you to come, that was a tough decision, because it's a big risk when we had some money that we had saved for our children, the children, and we thought, well, we can use that, because there had never been money as part of this whole endeavor until after Christine died, and then left a partial amount of money so that we could carry on. And that's when we said if we can manage 3 years, then that would be quite something. If we manage 5 years, it's a miracle. But it is something that, because of the risk, a lot of that's the impetus that caused us to want to make something of it. We had to. We didn't have any money other than that small amount that we had saved. And even after we started giving concerts and people sent money, they sent it to Christine, and then she sent it to her lawyer in New York. So, I mean, we were hanging on there for quite some time. And at those years before, we needed the university to be able to develop this place, actually. And but all that time, the whole idea was the love of music and the feeling that this was the right place for music, and that we would get it done because we were frightened enough that if we didn't, at that age, what do we do next? We weren't sure we could get another position somewhere, though, you know, it might have been possible. We were both good instrumentalists, but nonetheless, that hung over you. You have to get this and get it right, or you're going to be out there trying to find a job again. My mother, when she came here and saw it all in its dishevelment and what it all entailed, then you're talking to two 90-year-olds here, and somebody has to finish the word.
Sometimes.
But anyway, she said, "I don't know, honey. I think you're making a big mistake." So I loved that encouragement, and we decided to give it a try even more. And as things grew, developed, first with the students, who absolutely loved the place, loved the way we were causing everybody to live. I mean, we had discussions at the dinner table about music and why would we even be involved in it. That gave them encouragement, caused them to practice more, and with a seriousness that caused many, after they left us, to get positions in orchestras or small groups. I hope that...
And we still keep in touch with a lot of them,
Yeah,
you know?
we do.
Yeah.
Even though they're also retired now.
Well,
Which is
and
strange.
then at a certain point along the development of this, you began to attract other people who were non-students, who were music lovers, and I think we are all incredible beneficiaries of
Yes.
how effective you were in building a family of support for this place. And I think we would all love to hear a little bit about how you did that and how you inspired such incredible love for this place.
Well, I would say that we always felt that it would be great to involve people, not only in listening to the music, and Luca was wonderful at talking about what we were going to play or do, or relating it to the music. And then I thought, you know, people were beginning to drive from Stanton and Roanoke, and I thought we should have a cookie brigade. And I talked to a number of people, and I said, would you be willing to bring cookies here that you made, you know, and we'd have tea and lemonade, and we'd do that after the concert. And that's how it started. I think it's something that I've always felt is that you know, you have to nourish people well, both musically and with food, good food. But that started a feeling of people being loved, I think. So there we are.
And I have to say that these weren't all music lovers.
No.
There were people who had never been experiencing this so-called serious classical music. But word got around for the place itself and the idea that there were these refreshments, and they would come and they became educated at that time because of speaking about the music. And then they kept coming, and then they started sending funds to support it. I mean, now we're getting into later period, and that just kept growing. I have to say that people seemed to like us. They also liked us because we were fools. Well, they felt that, you know, like my mother, you're making a mistake. Do you realize you're in the countryside? You don't have an audience.
She said, yes, who's going to walk up to up here? Who's going to drive up here? I said, well, there are some people that are curious. Curiosity, you know?
And curiosity did help very often. And friends just told others, and pretty soon you did find them coming, not only those residences here, but from Stanton, Roanoke,
Lexington.
Richmond,
Yeah.
and they became still thinking it's really so unusual, and you're so brave for doing this, because, I mean, I don't see how it's going to last with where you are, and yet they came and supported. And there are those, very few now today, that are still supporting it from that early period. And we're very grateful for that. And as you felt people loving it to that degree, you felt even more motivated to get it done and to increase the quality of what they were going to experience. And eventually, it began to be called the Garth Newel experience. And believe me, that is more than I guarantee whoever it is that's doing this in New York City would love to have their audience feel and respond in that way. You just don't get it in that same way. They hear it, then they get up and they go out into the traffic. And here, look at what they found as they came in, and look at what they found as they left. And look at what they heard, and what they experienced, and the food, and the hospitality, and the sheer friendships that came to be. And there were many, many friendships. And they all said, isn't this fantastic? But these people are crazy. And I have to tell you, one of the things that also, because as people looked at us as something special, every so often we wanted to say something that makes us look foolish. And so that there wasn't this idea that we were anything special. And so you want to be a bit humble and let them know that you are humble. And I would tell them something that I did foolishly on a lawnmower or some crazy thing that they'd found amusing that was foolish of me to think or have done. you know, that's how people get to like you and not just think, oh, these are a couple little egotistical people. That may sound strange, but you know that.
Well, yes, and you told me a story, and I'm sure others in the audience know this, but maybe not everyone, about how you kept a close contact with that family of support outside of the regular season. Tell us about the really peculiar Christmas caroling approach you did.
Well, we drove, well, first of all, we always wanted to celebrate those people who were so fond of Garth Newel. So I said, well, I'll make biscottis and put them in little packages, tie them with a bow. And
Biscotti are a special kind of
there's
little
twice-baked
cracker.
cookies, Italian.
Yeah.
And so, of course, we met in Rome, you know, so we both spoke Italian pretty well. But anyway, to get back on this, we decided we knew we couldn't take a piano, so we went with Evelyn Grau, who was our violist and a wonderful person, and we said, Luca actually made the decision that we would take these to people's residences and our instruments and play for them. So that's
Just a short piece.
oh,
So
just a short piece.
did
yes.
they know you were coming before you showed up?
No,
Most
actually they
no,
don't.
they didn't. and we didn't dress up or anything, you know. I mean,
we forced this on them.
yeah, right. But they were. It made a big difference to them and to us actually, and to Garth Newel, because they really appreciated that. We went as far as Richmond, didn't we, Luca? And
Oh, yeah.
even almost
we-
close to Newport News.
That's correct.
Yeah, Henry was his name. He was on the board.
I can't remember. But we were then invited very much, or quite often, to these towns to perform, because these people, whoever they were, and as I say, not necessarily the musicians, they would somehow get us, or they would host us. They would host us and invite people themselves in their homes. We did that quite often in a place in Washington for someone who had become quite a good supporter here. And we went to Roanoke that way because of an invitation, Washington, Richmond. I mean, it became accumulative. And that's what was so exciting about the whole thing. Everything was positive. We never owed a bill. That seemed to impress the funders that came later, that somehow the place was always on its feet, never desperate. And of course, we didn't want them to feel we didn't need it either, but we did need funding, and they did fund it. And I think Garth Newel has been very fortunate that way, and we're very grateful for those people, then and now, who support this crazy idea.
Well, and for the musicians who have performed here.
And
Of
for
course,
the
the Garth Newel Piano Quartet, but we've had a lot of visiting artists too, and guest musicians, and I think that it's just developed that way, so it's been with a lot of tender care and love.
You know, it is so interesting to come in as a full-time newcomer, where you have no choice but to see just so many aspects of an organization. When I hear the background of the various things we're doing now, they all started in this sort of creative burst from the two of you, and some of them For example, the culinary program is now at an industrial scale. But really, it was Arlene saying, they're coming all this way, we have to feed them something. And you know, I guess most of it started in the manor house.
Yes.
One interesting factoid is that this summer is the 50th anniversary of the first concert here in this room. That's correct?
With the dirt floor and everything else, that some of you remember.
And the snakes.
And the snakes and, yeah.
This, if it's of any importance, you stop me if it's not, but this didn't look this way. This was a dirt floor because it was used to exercise horses. Christine and her husband loved horse riding. And so this really was a stable. And when we decided to do something with it, a third of it fell down. And that's why you have that front portico out there. And then slowly, first we put outdoor carpet on it, and then slowly the floor, and then this building has been built over exactly as it looked before.
So an insulated wrap.
With an insulation in between. And up there, because when it rained, we had to stop playing. I mean, it was so loud coming down on the roof that you couldn't hear the music if it was a good storm. So that is also now. And then, of course, you can see air conditioning. We had another good supporter who said, that's Dan Ingalls, who owned the hotel at the time. He said, I don't want you to change this place. I don't want you to put air conditioning in here. But we began to get calls that people wanted to come, but they say, is it air conditioned? And so we thought we're going to have to do something, and that's why that air conditioning or heating system is in there.
So one has an image of this institution, if you will, evolving over time through creativity and experimentation and so on. And certainly when you first moved up here, I imagine all of the details of that were utterly unknown to you. Is that a safe?
Yeah, I must say we wore several, Luca wore several hats and I wore several hats.
Yes.
And Georgia is the only one here now that remembers all of that because we hired her, I think, a part-time secretary, wasn't it, Georgia? When you were 19? 20. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm off by a year.
Yeah, no, but she
This is Georgia Tennant, our bookkeeper and financial expert.
Yes, and she took dictation, I think, from Luca and so on, and wrote some letters. So Luca was the fundraiser. He was the cellist. He was the lawnmower.
Bushes.
You name it.
Painting,
yeah, we did a little bit of everything. And myself, I kept some of the books at that time.
Yes, you did.
And I got Bert Ely, I don't know, Eli, he moved to Washington, but he was from Roanoke, a very nice man. And I said, I need help. I've never taken a course in this, help me. So he sat me down and told me how to do all the bookkeeping. And he said, and now send it to me, and and so that I can look it over, and then I'll send it back. And that's sort of how we started doing, things like that.
And
Would not be safe to say that when you moved here in 1980, that there was a strategic plan?
it was just carrying on. No, I would say that's not it. It's just carrying on. We didn't have time to have a strategy. It just was,
That's true.
we had to just keep going as in building and making things better.
Well, there's a segue reason for asking this question because, of course, you've been away from the direct management of Garth Newel
For a good many
for
years.
more than 25 years, and so you've had an opportunity to watch what's going on and to reflect on your years here. And those of you who don't know, you have an apartment that's connected to the Kendall House down the hill that is yours to use whenever you like. But surely you have developed some thoughts about what the next 25 or 50 years look like for Garth Newel. And I think all of us would really love to hear your thoughts and dreams about what this continues to become.
Well, I'll let Luca start with that one.
Well, I'll tell you what, and I hope I've got enough time. I read something this morning from the New York Times, and it said if you listen to this music, it will change your day. And it was a Brahms romance
Or a song without
in
words.
F major.
Oh, that one, yeah, romance.
Opus,
and then
Opus 118, number 5.
yes, exactly.
18, 1 to 5. And there had been an ad just before that, strangely. This is on my iPhone. And it was lousy Lorder or...
No, help us, it's the makeup people.
Yes,
Estee Lauder.
I said lousy Lauder. Anyway, it said, beauty is knowledge. And I thought, no, knowledge is beauty. Because the whole idea of teaching and how people listen to music, why they listen to it, what they feel and know is what I think is important for the world. And what I would like to see is more education on that score, because after that there was a little bit of the romance, and it was explained what was being heard and how it was being heard. Then it did another segment, and it explained and how. So it's that educational part that I hope could be developed over time. Our musicians, great people, play beautifully, and they've come a long way in talking about music. But if I heard that today, bom, dee, bom, dee, bom, dee, bom, 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 that kind of thing, I would say, I love you, I love life, I love the wonder of it. That's what there is in every piece, a message. And people don't realize that. They just think it's music for the elite, or it's that sophisticated, or they have no idea what it is. And I would like to see that education be down at that stable, set up for just a little lecture and explanation of things. We had a chance to also make it at the same time an art gallery. There were a good number of 18th century Dutch paintings that I was offered, that if I would be able to put them around the house or the property, and they would be safe. They were going to be given to Garth Newel. But I wasn't in charge at that time. I was just informed by a supporter that he would do that. And whoever it was at that time just didn't have any interest in it at all. So we missed that. So that's one thing I'd like to see happen. The other is that with the artists, the emerging artists, somehow it's, again, a wild idea that in order, and it's still on that educational kind of idea, that I would like to see Garth Newel support them to a partiality, but talk to a place like Stanton or Roanoke to fund them for a year in their community, go to the schools, play, talk to the children about what the music is saying, not just to give a concert, but what it is saying. And get that kind of response, because I feel that's what society needs. Many years ago, we used to have that music in the schools, and it's gone totally. And a lot of fine music is also gone totally for society as a whole. And I think we need to try to recover it. Garth Newel is a place where that has started. If towns had it and our artists, emerging artists, could be supported partially by Garth Newel to encourage a community to say, yes, we would like them. And I think that would be a wonderful thing, and that building. The final one, and I might be able to think of more, but I've always hoped that musicians would live in the community, because I think there is something that builds even more connection to Garth Newel for that person, that musician, if they live in the community. But I understand that not everybody loves the countryside. They are here, they can enjoy it, but they want to get back to where people are. And I would hope that in the future, as things go on, that when people are engaged as musicians, that they are interrogated as to whether they really feel comfortable in this kind of environment.
And bringing up a family in this environment.
Yes, all of that.
Yeah.
And finally, the ultimate of that, this is 113 acres, actually more than people realize. And there's space up there for 4 houses. And I'd like to see people live, musicians live on the property.
We've got our work cut out for us.
I know. Well, but you were asking, what the
Yes.
future held, and I can't really say. I wouldn't have known, what this was going to develop into as it is. I think it's a miraculous thing. I mean, I wish my mother were here to see it.
Yes.
Indeed.
Hear
Yeah,
it,
indeed,
you know?
yes.
But
And I think one thing that Luca did not tell you is that when he was young and beginning first of all, he played the violin, and then he had to study with his father, which he didn't like very much.
no, my father didn't like me.
Oh, okay, I've got it the wrong way around. But anyway,
It's all right.
he went and studied cello with his brother. And his brother was a fine cellist and has played here. They live in Rhode Island, but they've been here and they like it. And what I was getting at was that when Luca started the cello, his grandfather was his great supporter and knew that Luca would be a great man.
Oh, yeah.
And anyway, he went to Music Mountain in Connecticut. And that's where they had 4 houses for the string quartet.
Yes.
and the small similar style hall, which they still, I think, use today, right, Luca?
Yes, they do. And it is there that I saw people just love each other after a performance. And they would go to the violinist, the first violinist. He had the biggest house. I don't approve of that. He had the biggest house, and they would have little bits of wine and this kind of thing.
Trees and stuff. Yes.
And I just thought, these people are loving this music. They seem to like each other very much. It was always a very, as you like to say, a familial experience. Not the size of Garth Newel. It's nothing like Garth Newel. This has gone beyond that. I mean, it is extraordinary, as you've said. I was glad you told us that it was. And,
You wouldn't have known without that.
no,
Oh, come on. Let's open it up for questions from folks who are here. If you could really shout out your question, I will repeat it so that the folks online are able to hear the question.
And us,
then
yes.
You'll hear it.
Okay.
Anyone have a question? Yes, Ellen.
Well, I'm interested in how you discovered and managed the wonderful acoustics that are in this building.
Okay, so Ellen has asked about the wonderful acoustics and how you managed that. And discovered them here, yes.
you want to say?
Well, when we first came here, when it was very dilapidated and it didn't have a floor and so on, Luca came here. We didn't have a stage, of course, but he clapped his hands like this. And he said, I think this is a very good acoustic. And he said it would be, even better if there was a wooden floor and so on. And so we did it again and again, and we said, yeah, the wood, with the wood in here and everything, it would be a good acoustic. So that was the beginning of us developing the acoustic in here. We didn't have to do a lot to it. Mostly the floor helped.
And windows.
And the windows helped, yes.
Yeah,
We had rickety old things before.
Well, some of them,
They didn't have them yet.
They didn't have windows,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, does that answer the question? Yes.
Someone else?
Ellen?
What you started here and what it has become is just extraordinary. The risk that you took. At some point, as the years went on, did you get a sense that we're going to survive and we're actually going to thrive, and maybe it's time that it's not just the two of us running everything? Did you decide to have a board of advisors, of directors to help you, either formally or informally?
So just to repeat the gist of the question, Janice's question is about the point at which, I'm going to paraphrase, you begin to recruit additional leadership, board members, advisors, that sort of thing, into the process as you were developing the institution.
At first, I mean, it was very, very small, just enough to make it legal, for Christine and the taxes. She was the president, her lawyer was a member, and we were, I've forgotten the term for it, but two outside members,
Sort of adjunct.
adjunct, something like that, so that, we could handle both things. And when we really got started, after Christine died, I was supposed to become the president. In her mind, I was supposed to become the president. I had no feeling of being the president. It's too high a thing. And I wanted to be somebody that did a lot of work and well, I wanted involvement. And so I asked Dan Ingalls to be the president. No, not Dan Ingalls, Penn Brooks.
Penn Brooks,
You don't
yes.
know the name. He was somebody whose great swimming hole, the swimming hole of the Cowpasture River, we would go down to have the students and so on. And I asked him to be the president, and he had no desire to do it. I said, Christine told me to ask you to do it. And then immediately he took it. And so that was the first president. That then meant we could have another, and we had a member of Congress from Virginia. That was another one. And then we had a person from another person from Washington, who had expressed a great interest in Garth Newel when he first came to the hotel and wanted to meet me, and we had a long winter discussion, and he became a very fine supporter as well, so eventually he was on the board. And then we had, we had Ellen at one point, and slowly we had people that loved the place and a board that really didn't want to do anything, but they would make it so that the foundation was all legitimate and formed, and they were very good with every meeting I ever had. I hope you have that luck. And they were just so incredibly supportive because they also felt we had no idea what we were doing. And they didn't know how they could change it.
And most of them...
I mean, it was a strange
Yes.
kind of situation.
And most of them didn't know why they liked chamber music or whether they would ever like chamber music.
Yes.
But Dan Ingalls was the only one who was a pianist as well and taught Sanskrit at Harvard, you know. I mean, he was quite an intellectual man and loved music. And I would say he was the only one we ever had on our board that was a real musician at
Yes,
the same
that's right.
time, yes.
That's so interesting. We'll have time for one more question. I just want to reiterate that for me, hearing these stories and hearing your sort of motivations behind them, it is really interesting to reflect that after more than 50 years, more than half of which you were not involved in the direct management of Garth Newel, how much Garth Newel still bears the stamp of your incredible example and inspiration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that in mind, I need to let everyone know that the moment this is over, the members of the board and the staff are going to vanish into the room back there to continue the work. But those of you who are not involved in that meeting, please stick around and say a word to Luca and Arlene. It is such a privilege to know you.